Okay, well, you don't have to go. You can sit right here.
Alrighty.
Okay, so today we're still talking about rejection, and a lot of the stuff that I'm bringing out is from the book. It's called "Destroying the Spirit of Rejection" by John Eckhart. I guess that's how you say his name. I never realized how to say it, but it was just such a really good book, and I really felt led to teach from this book because I know a lot of people don't read, and so I thought, well, if I can teach it, then somebody will get some help out of it. And so today we're still talking about rejection. We're talking about how rejection enters into our lives. Okay, and the first thing I want to talk about, well, no, I don't want to get there yet. Let me just give like a little introduction here. Rejection is one of the greatest, and we mentioned this last week, undiagnosed and untreated disorders of the body of Christ. Nobody hardly ever deals with a spirit of rejection. When you come up for prayer, they'll say, oh, you need deliverance from anger, you need deliverance from lust, you need deliverance from perversion, but you never, ever, hardly ever hear anybody say, we need to get you some deliverance from rejection.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about it, all those things that I mentioned are just the fruit or the symptom of the rejection. Okay? Rejection can be, whether it can be active or passive. Okay? You can actively, deliberately reject somebody, or I can do it passively and not realize I'm doing it. Okay? Just because I said something that they perceived as rejection. Okay? It can be real rejection, or it can be imaginary rejection. You can really be rejected by somebody, or it can just be something you imagined because you took them wrong. Okay? But all this rejection robs Jesus of his rightful place in our lives. And it robs us of vital and a quality of life that Jesus intends for us.
That is
Okay? He doesn't intend for us to walk around being fearful of being rejected, being fearful of having relationships with people. Okay? He intended for us to have relationships with one another. Okay? The open door to rejection comes when we do not receive love and accept love. Okay? Sometimes we can give love, but we don't accept it back. Sometimes we accept love, but we don't bother to give it. Okay? All right?
I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's all right. Okay, so this is one of our basic human needs. When God created us, He created us all with a basic need to be loved and to give love. Okay? Every one of us. Whether we want to admit it or not, a lot of times we'll say, "Oh, I'm fine. I don't need that person. I don't need this," and But God created every one of us with that basic need to be loved and to give love. Okay, we may try to be strong and say that we don't need anyone and we don't care what people think, but that isn't true. But it is a sign that we've experienced rejection at some point in our life. Okay? And it's funny because you hear David say it all the time. I don't care what you think. I don't care what anybody thinks. Well, he don't realize it, but he's just spilling out. He battles rejection. Okay? God created us with the desire to love and to be loved and accepted. We need the love of others and especially the love of God. If we don't know how to give love or receive love, then that affects our relationship with even God. Okay? If we don't get that love, we feel an experience of rejection, which often manifests itself as either fear or pride. Okay? Rejection will usually manifest itself either through fear or pride. These are the two strongest manifestations of rejection. The fear says, I can trust no one. I've been hurt too badly, so I'm afraid of commitment and close relationships. I've used that sentence myself.
That's where I was at.
Okay, so pride says, I can do better by myself. Everyone has hurt me, and because of that, I don't need anyone in my life. Guess what? I've said that one too. So it's affected me in both ways, okay? The enemy knows how to destroy us through rejection, and he will use fear and pride to open the door for all kinds of demonic oppressions to come into our lives. Rejection is one of the most common demons we deal with. You know, I don't even think we realize how much we deal with it. Okay, but we have dealt with it all our lives. Every one of us have dealt with different situations of rejection. And now some of it, we deal with it, we move on, and we're fine. But some of it opens a door, and then we don't get past it. Okay? Rejection opens the door for rebellion, which gives the enemy a chance to set up two demonic personalities within an individual and suppress their own personality. Okay? So that a stable identity is never developed. And you know what? I got to thinking about this when I was studying it out. And I am so different now than I was when I was a teenager. When I was a teenager, I was one that I had to be the life of the party. I had to walk into the room and everybody see me and everybody acknowledge me. And now I'm okay with walking into a room, and it's okay if nobody notices me. I don't need that. I really don't even want that. I like just being a part. I don't have to be noticed. You know, and when I was studying this out, I'm like, that makes sense why I am so different. Because whenever I got raped at 13, that spirit of rejection came in, and it caused me to think that I had to win the room, win the life of the room for people to accept me. But God has done such a healing in my life through the years that I have learned how to love myself and know that God loves me, that I don't have to have all the attention in the room. And I know now that there's enough love to go around as much as I want to spill out and as much as anybody else wants to spill out to me. And if they don't want to spill it out to me, it's not my loss so much. Okay? But it was just crazy when I was studying this out. I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense. You know, because I always say, gosh, I'm so different, you know. And I almost looked at it as negative, you know, because I'm not as outgoing and not as friendly. But then whenever I studied it, as God said, this is why you're different. You are balanced. You're balanced. Okay? So that a stable identity is never developed. Okay? The person grows up double-minded with rejection as an inward personality and rebellion as the outward personality. I was very, very rebellious as a teenager. Bad. Okay? And I know that teenagers, to an extent, are just going to be rebellious because they're testing.
I feel really
But
weird.
then there's that over-excessive. I was over-excessive. I mean, I was out to break the rules and prove that I didn't have to abide by no rules. Okay? Rejection and rebellion are the two main strongholds that make up double-mindedness, with the root of bitterness coming in second. Okay? They interact like a threefold cord that is not easily broken. Okay? Rejection makes it almost impossible for individuals to develop into the true person that God created them to be. They become ruled by these spirits and find themselves always trying to compensate for their lack of development and their lack of confidence. So that's why when I would walk in a room and I had to captivate the room real quick because I had no confidence in myself.
Wow.
and who I was. I was not confident that I could hold on to a friend or keep a friend. Okay? They become rebellious they become rebellious in order to protect themselves from being hurt and from being taken advantage of. Okay? With rebellion comes bitterness against people and with life circumstances that have caused all kinds of hurt and trauma. Many people don't realize that they are suffering from rejection and that they themselves continue the cycle of rejection in our lives. And that's the part we don't often realize. That when we are walking in a spirit of rejection, we keep that cycle going. People keep rejecting us because of our own behavior. Okay? We don't even realize we're putting forth that symptom that causes people to reject us. Okay? We've probably experienced the ripple effect of rejection throughout your life from your parents, from other relatives, from teachers, from church leaders, supervisors, co-workers, and spouses who have been hurt and rejected and have reacted to you out of that spirit because you too experience rejection. Basically what I'm trying to say is those that have experienced rejection will cause rejection. They will reject others. If you walk in a spirit of rejection, you too will reject others. Okay? While everyone has been rejected, not everyone will become double-minded. It's all about whether or not you are able to develop a stable personality. So you can be rejected and not be double-minded, but anyone who is double-minded has been rejected. Okay? So, with that said, I want to go into talking about exactly on what things cause rejection to enter into our life. Okay? The first one I want to talk about is the rejection from the womb. Okay? Not everybody has experienced this. Some people have. My husband, for one, is one that was rejected from the womb because his father wanted him aborted. Okay? So we can actually experience rejection from the womb. Okay? I mean, it's like the devil is out to get you before you ever get your feet on the ground. Okay? Rejection often begins at a young age. It can even start in the womb through parental curses. Okay? If your parents walk in rejection, it can cause rejection in your life. Okay? Being unwanted or being illegitimate. Okay? Being abandoned. Even your birth order, where you fall in the birth line, can cause you to experience rejection. Okay? Like the middle child can experience rejection because they gloat over the older child, because they're the first to do everything, and they baby the younger child because it's the last. So a middle child can tend to be rejected. Okay? And then sometimes if it's a big family, the younger child can feel rejected because by the time the younger child gets up there, the parents are older and not as involved into their life. Okay? The other way that you can feel rejection from the womb is if your birth came around because of rape. Okay? Or adoption. If you're adopted, you can feel rejected from the womb. Molestation can cause you to feel rejection. If a mother was molested and a child came from that, it can cause them to feel rejection from the womb. Okay? A person may receive a spirit of rejection because of the manner or the timing of their conception. For example, if the mother was raped or molested or was having an affair and becomes pregnant, it can cause rejection to form at the womb. Okay? Why? Because we internalize things as mothers. And do you not know when your baby is growing? That baby can feel that internal spiritual warfare that's going on inside you. Okay? Children born under these circumstances may show a spirit of rejection. Children born out of wedlock to parents who didn't want them, okay, or who are strained on the family budget, the last of a large family, or the middle child of the family often struggles with rejection. You know, and I've always been one that's been big about, you know, a lot of people want big families. You know, there's people out there that want big families, but if you financially can't afford a big family, you're setting your children up to feel some rejection. Okay? Other forms of personal rejection is when a parent wants to have a specific gender but find out that their child will be the opposite gender. Okay? It happens. It happens, okay? And we do it without even realizing we treat them different. Sometimes we don't even realize it. It depends on how bad we wanted that different gender, okay? The birthing experience can affect how a child feels either loved or received or abandoned and rejected, okay? And this I found this so interesting, but it makes so much sense. If a child is forced out of the birth canal, either by forceps or by cesarean, if they don't go through that natural birthing process and actually go through that birthing canal, they can experience rejection. And the reason why is because God created us that when we go through the birthing process, the mother's not just going through some things, but that baby is going through some things. And when that baby is getting ready and he's going through the birthing canal, it is at that moment that hormones are being released to help that baby to adjust to life on the outside. But it's not released until you're going through this birthing process. And then at that process, you learn and you are adjusted to know how to experience that first whoosh of cold wind, that first bright light, that first loud noise, that first cuddle outside of the womb. It is through that process that a baby is being prepared to be able to receive all that. Okay? But when they are ripped out of the canal by force or by cesarean, they don't have time to get all that done. That's why the birthing process is a long process sometimes, because there's things that are going on that we have no clue about. Okay? But it's a psychological transition that takes place to prepare the baby and adjust them to the new environment. Sudden exposure can create problems. Okay, it can be very, very traumatic. Okay, and we all can understand that because a lot of us have issues with changes, sudden changes in our lives, and we're like, oh, no. Okay, and so it's no different for a baby, you know. And I got to thinking about, you know, especially when I wrote down those questions that I gave y'all, about when was your first experience with rejection. I was a cesarean baby. And I'm actually the oldest child, but I'm the middle birth child because my older brother didn't make it. So now I am the middle child, born by cesarean. I mean, the devil was setting me up from the beginning. Okay? And my mom, I'd already lost a sibling. That creates rejection. Losing a loved one can cause rejection. So before I even came into this world, I had things against me to set me up for rejection. Okay? The maternal bonding after birth is another place in early life where one is assured of their place in the family and in life. I can't express enough as mothers how important it is when that baby comes out of the womb I know we're tired because we've been through a process ourselves, but they need to know that they are received into this world. They need to know that they are loved and accepted the minute they come into this world. I hate it whenever a baby's born and they're crashing, and the mother don't even get to hold them, and they're carried off into the NICU unit. You know, it devastates me, and I never even knew the importance of it. But now I know, and I'm like, gosh, no wonder. No wonder that baby probably ends up later having the word just slipped my mind. Failure to thrive. No wonder they have failure to thrive. I mean, they were crashing, they got carried off, they never got to feel accepted or loved into this world. Who would want to be in this world? So yeah, it can create rejection and a failure to thrive in a child. Okay? If this bonding doesn't take place, the baby may suffer from a spirit of rejection. Okay? And so the next one I want to go over is generational rejection. Okay? I know a lot of people don't believe in generational curses. But I've seen too many of it. I've seen too many cycles to not believe in generational curses. And generational rejection is one. Okay? Rejection can be passed down through the generations. Parents who have suffered from rejection or who have been rejected before marriage find it hard to show love and affection to their children. And if you can't show love and affection to your children because you were rejected, then that child's going to feel rejected. And then it's just a vicious cycle. And guess what? It's like a snowball going down a hill. It just gets bigger and bigger every generation. Unless somebody is willing to take the time to get some knowledge and to stop this cycle. Okay? They love their children, but because they come from a family that showed affection. They love their children because they did not come from a family that showed affection and say, I love you, or I'm proud of you, or expressions of worth and value. They are unable to express love through physical contact or through verbal means. They don't know how to do it. It's like, it's almost sandpaperish to them. It don't even feel right. When somebody that did not get love, was not told how to express love, starts trying to do it, it almost feels completely wrong to them. It's like, this ain't right. It almost feels perverted. Perverted to tell them. People are going to think I'm like perverted because I'm telling my kids I love them. Because that's the enemy and that's how he works. Okay, so at first it feels weird and it's not comfortable. Okay? A person can be rejected by their family, and this kind of rejection can be the result of abandonment or by one or both parents, whether it be intentional or just perceived. Sometimes our parents really reject us, and sometimes it's just us perceiving that they're rejecting us, and they're not. Okay? Through abuse from authority figures, either emotionally, physically, or sexually. Going into foster care, or being put up for adoption, being born with birth defects, experiencing the death of a parent, parental neglect, or having overbearing parents or perfectionist parents can all create rejection. Okay? Having parents that you don't feel like ever trust you can create rejection. Okay? And I thought, oh Lord. Poor Caleb. Poor Caleb. Because I'd always say, oh, now girl, you better tell me the truth. You better do this. You better, because you come out of me and your daddy, and I know how we are. I can't trust you. So, trust can cause rejection. And not trusting your child enough can cause rejection. Or not trusting them without good cause. I know that when your kid gives you cause, you've got to set boundaries. But there are some parents that don't trust, they just don't trust their kids, like me. Because they knew they couldn't trust themselves, and they thought, well, they gotta be just like me, they come from me, you know? So, birth order can sometimes be the root. Many middle children can be vulnerable if they feel that the parents favor the older or their younger sibling. Okay, and I already talked about that. More ways that rejection can enter into early life. Okay, I want to go into that. And this is talking about the early stages of life. It can be from being teased. Think about your elementary school days. Being teased, being bullied, being stereotyped, being held back in school. Restricted from certain activities in school because of how an individual looks, one's race, social or economic differences, because of gender, disabilities, or body type. I can remember in grade school feeling rejected because I was the fat chick. I had this boy that made fun of me, and it created in my life. And I was probably, at that time, I was probably 11 or 12. And then turned around and got raped at 13. Okay, so I already didn't feel good about myself. And then that happened. And so some people internalize, some people externalize, and I got rebellious and I got wild. Okay? But it all stems to that rejection. It all stems back to that rejection. Okay? These are more ways rejection can enter in early life. Okay? Relationships, parents' relationships with each other. We don't realize we're being watched and how important our relationship with our spouse is and how our children are watching that relationship. A child learns how to love their spouse by watching the parents love each other. They learn how to fight and deal with conflict by watching their parents. Okay? When a child sees the father abuse the mother or vice versa, either sexually, verbally, or physically, it can create rejection in their life. By living with an unhappy parent who is arguing, fighting, and won't talk to each other and only speak to the children, which causes the child to feel guilty. The parents won't talk to each other at all, but they'll say, go tell your dad I said it. Go tell your mom I said it. That'll create rejection because they feel like the parents, because they're having to say all the ugly stuff to them, but that parent's going to reject them. Okay? Being in a home where one or both parents are alcoholics or drug abusers can cause rejection. Okay? Now I want to talk about the other way that it can enter is through our relationship with our parents and child. It's a child-parent relationship. It can enter through that way. How we treat our children. Okay? Being raised by a weak, apathetic, or passive father. What I mean by that is a father that's not involved in their child's life. Not involved in any of their activities, not involved in any of their interests. Okay, not involved in their school stuff. They don't help with homework. They don't, they don't run them to and fro. And I know fathers are busy. They work, but they have to be involved at some point, or they can be a passive father, and it can cause the child to feel like they've been rejected. Okay, by that father. Being constantly criticized or made to feel like you can never measure up. Being too hard on your kids, critical of your kids, can cause them to feel rejected. Okay? Being raised by parents who show no active interest in one's progress in school, sports activity, or leisure time. We have to acknowledge our kids' good things when they're doing good. Acknowledge it. And Josh isn't involved in a whole lot. Okay, he's just not the active sports person, and I was very involved in Kaylee's sports because I love sports myself. And so I find myself having to be very careful to make sure that I can be a part of whatever Josh is interested in. He loves science. He loves history. And so, like, he come home the other day and he got to be involved in they call it a geography bee. He got to compete against the other kids in his class, and he won that. So then he got to go to the next level, and he got to compete against the junior high. Okay? And in that one, he got second place. So the first place person went on to compete against the high school. But, I made sure to tell him, I am so proud of you. That is awesome. And then the other thing is, he is, they do this every year, and it's a neat little thing. For history, they do what they call a live wax museum. And the kids pick a person in the history, and they dress up like that person, and they have a board that they put together about that person. And when you stand in front of them, they have to automatically, like they're a talking wax person, tell about themselves. Okay? And they did this last year, and Josh was George Washington, and of course I made sure I got off work, because I don't have to get off work for him very often because he's not involved in sports. So I made sure I got off work to go to this thing because it's during the school hours. Well, this year he was so excited. He had so much fun last year doing it because we bought the full get-up. You may have seen him on Facebook in his little George Washington suit. He had the wig and everything. And so he come home, he said, Mom, we're doing the wax museum again this year. And I said, oh, are you really? I said, well, who did you pick to be this year? And he said, Neil Armstrong. And I'm like, who is he? Oh, the astronaut! The astronaut! So I've already bought the astronaut suit. It's on its way. So we're going to be very, very involved. Okay? So
That's awesome.
we just have to be involved in stuff that I know nothing about. And I feel real stupid. But he always educates me if I don't do it right. He is quick to tell me, Mom, it's da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, well, what all did he do? I can't remember. What all did he do? So he has to educate me, because that was way too long ago for me. And history was not my thing, by no means. I don't know if anything was my thing, but definitely not history. Come on. Okay, so being raised by parents who have the financial resources but are stingy and withhold their provision from their children. They have plenty of money to take care of their kids, but they'd rather spend it on what they want instead of taking care of what the kids need. Okay? If a father gives more attention, and I thought this was crazy. I'm like, this would be a red flag for me real quick. But anyway, if a father gives more attention to his daughter's friends than he does his own daughter. I'm like, wow.
That's weird.
Yeah, like red flag for me, right there, But anyway, I guess it happens. Being consistently left at home alone. And this one I went, oh Lord help me. Poor Joshua. Okay? Because of the parents' working hours and their disinterest in the child's welfare. Okay? Now I'm not saying my son is left home alone, because he chooses most of the time. We go somewhere and I'm like, Josh, hey, we're going to go do this or that. Do you want to go? No, I just want to stay here.
This is like Tanner. Tanner does the same thing.
So hopefully I'm not setting him up, because I always try to include him, but he just lives himself. But yes, a child that is left home alone a lot, especially if they're left home a lot because the parents want to go out and do their own thing, then they're definitely going to feel that rejection. Okay? Experience parental harshness or coldness. Okay? Either constantly harping on them about a subject or just giving them the cold shoulder. Okay? Where you just swell up and you don't even talk to them. And they just know you're mad. Okay? never getting forgiveness, or a sense of being interested in one's parents. Okay? A sense of never being trusted by one's parents. Okay? You never feel like they forgive you when you mess up. You feel like they're always holding it over your head. They always bring back what you did the next time you get in trouble. Well, you always do this. You remember when you did that? Okay? Or we never trust them. Okay? Being used to get one's way, or being spoiled. A spoiled child, believe it or not, I thought that was kind of odd. A spoiled child can feel rejection.
What?
Yes.
From their parents?
Because they get their way all the time. They don't feel like the parents care enough really to discipline them, to teach them anything. You can feel rejected. Okay? Being bribed or threatened to be academically successful can create rejection. Okay? Now the next one I want to go into is the sibling dynamics. And this one makes sense because it happens all the time, and I know the parent don't mean to, and sometimes you can't even avoid it whenever it's bad enough, but it happens. Having a terminally ill or mentally challenged sibling who requires intensive medical care and attention can create rejection in the other sibling. Okay? And it makes so much sense. But sometimes you can't avoid it. And a lot of the times, being the older child, you can feel rejected when the second child comes. Just because the mother has to spend so much time with that baby. Especially if it's a breastfed baby, you have to spend so much time with that baby that older child can feel left out and neglected, especially if they're not included into these activities of just taking care of this baby. Okay? Receiving unfair discipline, especially when one child is always getting passed by and is everyone's favorite. Okay? Definitely creates rejection. If you always feel like your sibling is favored over you, they care more about them, and you're the one that always is the bad child, you're the black sheep of the family, that child can feel rejected because of those things. Okay? Receiving unfair I already said that one. I'm not going to say it. Okay, then the next one I want to go to, and I'm sitting here as I was studying this, and I'm checking off, okay, I experienced that one. I experienced that one. No wonder I walked in rejection for 40-something years. Because I experienced so much. Okay? But the fourth one I want to talk about is life-changing events or trauma. Okay? Living through a fire or a natural disaster in which the family's home was destroyed. I've never been through that. I know my Cody and Davin, they've been through that. Shalina, they've been through that. They lost a home to fire. And I can see that causing rejection because you lose everything that was dear to you. Your memories. Especially if you had memories of somebody in that home that you had lost to death already. I mean, it can create a severe spirit of rejection in your life. Having a close relative who committed a serious crime and is sentenced to prison for a time can cause rejection. And I know some of us in this room have probably experienced that, and maybe she'll talk about it later when we get off live, because it can truly set you up for rejection. Okay? Being a victim of sexual abuse or incest. I can witness to that one. Okay? Experiencing a sudden decline in families' socioeconomic status due to unemployment or bankruptcy. If your parent suddenly loses their job and all of a sudden you went from being middle class to having nothing. Okay, you're losing your home, you don't have a car to drive. All those things can create rejection. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is involuntary physical characteristics These are pretty basically, and they pretty basically make sense. Racial minorities, other races, when they're the minority in that area, are going to feel rejected. Okay? Having a speech impediment, such as stuttering, stammering, having a lisp, an inability to pronounce certain words, can cause somebody to feel rejected. Okay? Being teased, bullied, or called names because of an uncommon or physical feature. Okay? Either cleft lip, walking with a limp at a young age, having just a stub. All those things are just things that basically people can get rejected for just because they look different. Or maybe they've been in a fire and their face has been burnt and they have deformities because of the fire. Can create rejection, you know? And sometimes people don't even realize they're doing it. It can just be a look. They walk in the room and you're like, because you don't know, you wasn't expecting it. And guess what? Automatically that rejection came, even though you didn't intend to. You were just took by surprise. Okay? The other one, area that in early ages that you can experience rejection is through school, church, and social groups. Okay? Being expelled for bad behavior at school. You can feel rejected by the whole school. Okay? Included from a desired social group. You want to be the cool kid, but they won't let you in. Or you want to be a part of this club, but you didn't get to make it. You wanted to be a part of the what's that dance choir thing? What do they call it?
Show choir.
Show choir. But you didn't make it in the tryout. That can all cause rejection in a child. Being embarrassed by your parents' religious beliefs. Yes. Being embarrassed by your parents' religious beliefs. Okay? You can experience rejection because of that. Because of the way, because you look different, or because of your different beliefs, you can't get involved in some of the things that the other kids are involved in. You feel rejected. Okay? Let me see how much I got. All right, I'm going to do parental rejection. It is a very big open door to the enemy, and all of us need love and approval, and we should get that approval from our parents. It is our job as parents to make sure that our kids get the love and approval that they need. Okay? When they don't get it, it sets them up for failure in so many areas. Okay? In other relationships, in their marriages, when they do not learn how to feel love and how to give love and how to feel accepted, then it messes them up in many areas of their life. Even in school, because if you're not loved by your parents, you're not really driven to do well in school. You know, I ain't got nothing to offer. My parents don't even want me, so why try? Okay? When you let down by your parents in significant ways, which left you open to rejection, it's the parent's job to be watchful. God called us to be watchful over our children. He called the fathers to be priests of their home. That means they're supposed to watch for what's coming at our children. And he called the mothers to be nurturers, to make sure they get everything they have need of. Love, affection, everything they have need of. Okay? But we are to be watchful so that the enemy will not use you to plant seeds of bitterness and rejection in the hearts of our children. We should never be the one that plant the seed of bitterness and rejection. But so many times we are usually the first ones that plant the first seed. In many children, it was their parents that planted the first seed of rejection. Okay? The enemy will try to repeat the same pattern of rejection that you experienced and keep these patterns going from generation to generation. The devil tries to work on children at a young age. Through their parents, he will try to plant a seed of rejection in their hearts, causing them to grow up to be bitter and angry. How many of us have experienced some of that bitter and angry because of a seed that was planted way back before we even realized it was planted? Okay, there are a lot of angry people in this generation. They are angry with their parents because their parents haven't loved them, spent time with them, or raised them up in the things of God. Many young people have been born out of wedlock. They're born with no fathers in the home, or they have no fatherly image. Separated parents, divorced parents, never married parents. So when we see young people involved in all kinds of ungodly and perverse activity, we can't just blame the devil for it. The devil couldn't get in unless a parent opened the door by not providing a prayer covering and love and security. We can't blame the devil for everything our children are doing and what they're going through. Sometimes we got to point the finger right back at us. Okay? The devil's plan is to break down marriages and to bring unfaithfulness, separation, and divorce into the home so that he can set the children up for rejection. He knows what that kind of breakdown does to generations that follow. See, and the thing about it, it's not just affecting your children, but it goes on for generation after generation after generation. Okay? He knows that when it breaks down in that generation, it will follow. Okay? He knows how a child will feel in the custody battle. He knows how a child will feel when the mother has to go to court to collect child support and the father is not willing to pay it. Okay? He knows that the father, to support when he fails to pay his child support. He knows how a seed of rejection has the potential to grow until the person's life is in ruins. So many people's lives are in total ruins because of the spirit of rejection that has just grown and cycled and cycled. God designed our order. He designed the order for our homes that provides a defense against the enemy's attack on our young people. God gave us a divine order. There's a reason He gave us the Word. And there's a reason He gave us boundaries. Okay? And it was to protect us. Not to be mean. Not to say we can't do this or can't do that. But it was to protect us and our children that were coming up underneath us. The devil isn't just out after you. He is after your seed. He's after your children. It is our responsibility as a parent to raise our children according to the Word of God. The blame for what is going on with your young people mainly rests on the parents. America has the highest divorce rates. We'd rather shack up and sleep with multiple partners and do whatever we want to do and expect that our children are going to be okay. And it don't happen that way. Those are outside the boundaries that God laid for us. Okay, so we can't walk outside the boundaries God laid for us and expect that our children are going to be okay. We have a messed up generation. We have a generation of homosexuality and lesbianism, bisexuality, and gender confusion are running rampant among our youth. This is a spirit of perversion with roots that began in rejection. Okay? These youth are angry because they've been rejected. God has a plan, though, to restore all the years that have been taken from you. He wants to restore all those years, okay, that the enemy has taken. You may not have made the right choices, but as you grow in knowledge of God and you repent and get delivered and restored so that your children and the generations to come will be shielded from the enemy. You can begin to repair the breaches so that they can walk in the covenant blessings of the Lord all the days of their lives. Okay? Your life, as a young person may have been messed up, but we can fix that for those that are coming up underneath us. Okay? But it's up to us to break that cycle. The cycle of rejection and bitterness and anger can stop with us, okay? But we have to be willing to stop it. Do y'all want to stop right there? Yeah, we better stop right there because this next section's quite long. Okay, the next time we get together, we'll talk about the next one, which is abuse and trauma can open the door to rejection and rejection later in life. We'll talk about those and society, cultural, and ethnic rejection. And if you want to study ahead and bring some stuff with you, feel free to do that. Okay? So at this time, we're going to go ahead and stop the live feed so that we can have personal interaction with the group.